Alright, here we are, I think. For now, the final video I'm making on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Unfortunately, it's been a lovely run. But here we are. Just kind of here to wrap it all up. Rank all the parts first, and then we've got 128 characters, nowhere near all of them, but just anyone I thought was, I had anything to say about is on here. Um, so that's what we're left with. Um, I'm gonna try and be quick. I don't want to be here for too long. So I'm just gonna go through things as quickly as I can. I know I do go on tangents in these videos all the time, and I sort of get lost in my own thoughts, but we'll just try and get this done as quickly as possible. So let's just do these parts. I can get this done really fast because, I mean, if you need to know my full thoughts on the parts, you can watch the videos, I guess. They're not brilliant, I mean, but they're right. So yeah, start with part one. I'm just gonna put this in D. I would say this was largely just a really uninteresting story. It was completely carried by its antagonist. Dio was amazing, but there's really nothing else noteworthy going on here. It's just a not particularly interesting story. I don't really care about the protagonist. I don't really care about any of the other characters. I don't even really care about Dio. I just find him entertaining in this. It's very well drawn. That's sort of the big appeal of it, and of course its importance because it's the first part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But really, this is the most interesting part by a large distance. And part two is also considerably weaker than the rest. I think it's going to be the exclusive part to B and C. Really, my issues with this part are just like, it just feels out of place almost because there's no stands or anything. And I guess that's true of part one as well. I do like Joseph a lot more than Jonathan. Which, I mean, we'll cover that in the character tier list, I guess, but that much is definitely true. But the villains here are weaker. Dio is more entertaining than, like, any of them, the three of them. But there's some better side characters here. Caesar is fun, for example. More interesting set pieces. They travel around more. And it's much more creative as well. The action is more creative. The art is more creative. Generally, this is an improvement, but there's nothing like exceptionally improved upon in like terms of the story itself. So I couldn't put this any higher than a C either. Not particularly interesting story, and that's really what I'm here for when I read any manga, really. Part three is where things really start to shine. I'm gonna put it in B because I think the structure is unbelievably generic. They don't really try to do anything with it in that regard. A lot of the stands in this are comparatively quite forgettable compared to the rest of the series. And it's not the strongest main cast I've ever, in any of the parts or anything either. But it's really solid. This is the foundation, of course. Everything after this is sort of built on the ideas that this one puts forward. You can almost ignore the first two parts. I don't think you should, but like you could. If you wanted to. So, yeah. But I think, still, it's not really on this very stronger side, but it's definitely decent. Let's leave it at that. Part 4, that's going to go in A. This is a really solid part. It has a really endearing main cast, great protagonist. I like Josuke in this. I like Jotaro in this as well. I think he's better in this than part 3, but we'll talk about that as well. Amazing antagonist. Easily the best antagonist so far. And great setting. I love that they sort of scaled it down. It's all set in one place. There's more of a concentration on the character dynamics and relationships in this than there is in like part 1, 2, or 3 really. and it just feels a lot more personal. I think that really, you know, that really comes through in how it's executed. It just feels like a much more personal story to me. Then with part 5, I think we're going back down to B, but I would put it over part 3. With part 5, it's a weaker protagonist maybe. Giorno's not exactly the most amazing protagonist around. Antagonist also is a lot weaker, I would say, but it has a really strong supporting cast. Lots of great enemy stand users, and the team, Bruno and his team, they're all great as well. So yeah, and I love that Italy setting as well. Italy is one of the best settings they've done, really, I think. I mean, the settings just improve on themselves almost constantly. The only exception is part 8. Every setting is better than the last. Um, from 1 through 7. So yeah, really great. Then we have part 6. I would put part 6 in what am I? Yeah, I'm sort of debating between maybe slipping it into S, but yeah, part 6 to me was really excellent. Essentially because it's just like it's like a deconstruction of the previous parts, right? It takes that sort of formula that we've been running with now for like 3, maybe even 4 parts if you include part 2 to a degree, and it starts to deconstruct it, deconstructs its protagonist by doing some really interesting things with Jotaro's character, and also by introducing Jolene, who's very different to the first sort of 5 JoJos. Great supporting cast, great antagonist, absolutely gorgeous. Honestly, could be my favorite from the art perspective as well. This is just an excellent part to me. I know that it's a bit more on the divisive side, but to me, this is a real standout. With the exception of part 7, of course, which is, still Bull Run. It's still Bull Run. It's gonna go at the top. I don't know what else to say here. I mean, it's just absolutely exceptional. Everything about this is just brilliant, right? All the characters work, and there's such. I don't know, it's easily the tensest part as well. The stakes are really real. The stands are really good, and how they're utilized is so good. And unlike part 3, they're both just very simple structurally. They both are just a journey across sort of a land, and along the way you encounter a new stand user and then you beat them. But this one does so much more with it for like so many reasons. First of all, there's like a whole B plot going on with like Lucy and Valentine. So that is like a constant split. And also the set pieces just feel a lot more relevant to the story. Like most of the stand encounters in part 3 could happen like anywhere, but it feels like a lot of these, they fit the setting so well. I think that's like the real difference here, because this and part 3 are like very similar to each other in a lot of ways, but part 7 is just like doing everything right. And then with JoJolian, I'm going to put it in B. I'm going to put it here, I think. I could put it under 3. Maybe I'll come back to it after we've done some of the character rankings. Because it's a little bit on the tougher side compared to some of these to rank. Just because I mean, first of all, it's very fresh in my mind because I did only finish it, a few days ago, and get that video out. And also, it's by far the most difficult to follow. It really gets maybe excessively confusing at times, but it also means there's some plot points that I'm really just not that sure on. So I don't know how to feel about it in that regard. But what I will say is this: it's not the strongest protagonist, it's not the strongest supporting cast, it's not the strongest antagonist. The stands are generally a bit less interesting too, I thought here. The setting, it's just Mario again, and I'd argue this Mario is less charming, and feels almost less personal. Maybe it's just because it's like a more modern era Mario or something, I don't know, but yeah, I wouldn't say this is really, in the way that Steel Ball Run is an improvement on, what's it called? Stardust Crusaders. I wouldn't say that this is an improvement on Diamond is Unbreakable. So, yeah, if anything, it's weaker. So I think it has to go in B. Where in B? I'm not sure though. We'll put it in the middle for now. And that seems pretty good. I mean, that was done pretty fast. So let's see how quickly we can get the nightmare done. Um, so everyone here, I basically just picked people who I have something to say about them. So like a lot of like the random enemy stand users that get encountered in this, they aren't included because I didn't have like there's just nothing to add. Some of the funnier or more like threatening ones are in here, or maybe more philosophically interesting ones are in here, but it's mostly characters who are more than just a one-time encounter, right? Um, so yeah. I'm just wondering if I should go through them in alphabetical order, or just sort of pick and choose right now. Um, I mean, let's start with the JoJos. Let's go through all the JoJos first. So this is Jonathan. I'm pretty sure. I'm not gonna be able to remember all the names, by the way. Like for example, I can't remember this guy's name. Sorry, sorry to say that. But you know, it's 128 characters. There's even more people to remember the names of, and I was reading this over the course of what, like 6 months. I'm not gonna remember everyone's name. Sorry. But I do remember who everyone in here is because I did pick the images out myself. Um, so Jonathan, um, I can't in any good conscience put him above C. He's definitely the most uninteresting JoJo. He's definitely going to be the lowest JoJo. Um, and really, it just boils down to the fact that he just doesn't have much of a personality compared to everyone else. He just doesn't have the opportunity to shine in the same way. Um, and the same could be said of Joseph, but obviously we get Joseph for 3 different parts. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention that, but yeah, I have 3 different versions of Joseph, and 3 different versions of Jotaro in here. For the different eras, for the different parts, and I also have stuff with Dio as well. I didn't put Part 6 Dio in because I count that as the same character as Part 3 because it's from the same time because it's all in flashbacks. But yeah, there's 2 Dios as well, and I split Doppio and Diavolo. There shouldn't be any other sort of repetition, I don't think. But yeah. Um, but yeah, Jonathan, just a bit too generic of a protagonist for my liking. Can't put him above C, to be honest. Then with Joseph, if we start with let's just get this one out the way. Let's do all the JoJos in the parts they are the JoJo of, and we'll deal with these repeats later, I guess. So with Joseph, I think I will put Part 2 Joseph in B. He's very entertaining. He's very smiley. He's quite funny. In that sort of classic, like, it's like an 80s comic type of humor. Um, he has a good motivation. He has a good heart. He's endearing in a way that Jonathan really isn't. But is he exceptional? Like, of course not. Um, he's still not exactly what I would call not generic, I guess. Um, he has a very his goals are simple. The way he achieves his goals are simple. His way of thinking is simple. Also, there's some ways he acts where I'm like, kind of just a bit opposed to. I guess that's a silly thing to complain about because it's not like I'm going to agree with everyone here. And there's characters I love here who I really do disagree with, and like much more than Joseph. But you know, I can't. I'm not going to put her any higher, even if I'm struggling to justify it a bit. Now Jotaro in Part 3. To be honest, I'm going to put below Part 2 Joseph. Even if I prefer Part 3, I would say that there's a worse Jojo here. The issue really with Jotaro, not Joseph, is that he doesn't speak very much. Especially in Part 3, he's a very much sort of silent, stoic character, and a lot more of the talking is done by like Polnareff and like older Joseph. They almost feel more protagonistic some of the time, apart from the fact that obviously Jotaro is the one to defeat Dio and win everything, and he is the focal character, but he doesn't get the opportunity to act a lot of the time, and I think it's partly because his stand is so obviously stronger than everyone else's that putting him in fights all the time isn't going to be fun because most of the time he's just going to win in about 5 seconds. So they had to put Polnareff and other people like that in because they're going to struggle more. Which is like a perfectly reasonable thing to do, but the issue is it means you kind of take away the opportunity to grow Jojo's character in any sort of interesting way. And that's almost why he's the target of deconstruction in part 6, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, low B, he's probably like the gatekeeper between C and B, to be honest. Maybe not. There could be a difference, but yeah. Now with Josuke of part 4, I think it's fair to say that he's going to go in. I'm going to put him in S. I'm going to put him in S. I really love Josuke in this part. I think he's so likable because unlike these first three, he's not like a super badass guy. He's kind of just a kid, and he's just trying to help out his friends and sort things out in his town, so that the rest of his life is like peaceful. And as a result, unlike Jotaro, we never see him again. After he's achieved that goal, he probably just lived a lovely, chill life in Mario. And that's more relatable to me. And I think it helps that he has a really fun stand. He has a much more vibrant personality. He's not sort of stoic in the way Jotaro or Jonathan is, or even Joseph some of the time. Like Joseph, sometimes he's being silly and going, oh, or whatever. But a lot of the time he's just kind of... he's just kind of doing the same thing that Jotaro and Jonathan are. Whereas Josuke, he's rarely like that. You can always feel his personality. He's always communicating his personality, and that's much more enjoyable to me. And it helps that personality is great. So, an easy S, I think, really. Then we have Giorno. Where is Giorno? There. So with Giorno, I think he's also going to end up in the B, and I'm going to put him between the two. So what I like about Giorno most is definitely the fact that, unlike the first 4 JoJos, he is not like 100% good. He's not a force of good. He might be better than like Diavolo and the other antagonists. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Anyway, he's not exactly better than like... No, he is better. He's better than them, but like he's not a good person. His goal is to become basically the head of the Italian mob, and then enact things. He's quite a cruel person. At least it's certainly shown that way to a degree. That's not like an honorable goal in the same way that any of the previous 4 protagonists is. And that's definitely very interesting to see. That's what makes Part 5 so interesting. But what I would then say is the issue is, like, he ends up still being the same sort of stoic character we get in the first 4 parts. So aside from that moral grayness, is there anything exceptionally interesting about Giorno? Not really. I mean, I like how he looks. He looks really cool. I like that he's Dio's, like, son or whatever. He is Dio's son, right? I can't even remember. That's embarrassing. I think he's Dio's son. And I like how he thinks, but really, he's not the selling point of Part 5, right? Like, Bruno is the more compelling character, in general. And I wouldn't say he's, like, an exceptionally strong protagonist. I mean, really what we're finding out here is there aren't that many exceptionally strong protagonists, but, I mean, here, there's another one. Jolene is definitely going straight into S, and the debate here is above or below Josuke. And in fact, let's add to that debate. Because Johnny is also here, but again, I'm not sure which way round these 3 sort of go. I can tell you where Part 8 Josuke goes. He's gonna go there. So let's start with him, and I'll let my subconscious decide what's going on up here. So with Part 8 Josuke, I really like the motivation to find out who he is, and I like who he is, and I like the fact that he doesn't entirely become the people who formed him, but he still is informed by them. The decisions he makes and the goals he makes after finding his identity are based around their goals, and I really respect that. And I like his relationship with Yasuho and his relationship with his adopted family. Um, but at the same time, I don't think he necessarily has that level of vulnerability that like these three have. But he's also not like the super stoic character that these four are. It's very weird. Maybe I could put him in A. I think I'll put him in A. That's higher than I was expecting to put him, but I think it's more fitting to put him here. Because he's definitely a stronger character than these three. Like, distinctively. So I think A is probably appropriate. Okay, I think what I'm gonna say is I think I'm gonna go for that. I think that's fine. I think Jolene number 1, Josuke 2, and Johnny 3. Um, so Johnny, he might be in the best part, but he's definitely not the best character in his part, for a start. And second of all, a lot of the time he's almost reacting. He just kind of sees stuff and goes, whoa. And most of his character arc and things is done in the flashbacks. We get him as a child, and how his brother died, and then he sort of got abandoned, and then he became a very cocky jockey. Haha. Wasn't expecting that to rhyme, but and then where am I going with this? And then we see him, get in the action. Then he's in a wheelchair, and then he's able to overcome that, and then he's able to ride a horse again, and that's all great, but that's all over pretty soon. And after that, the only times he gets character development is like, sorry, bleh. The only times he really gets character development is like in the fight with Axel RO, and I guess in the fight with like Sandman, and whenever else he develops his stand. But just developing your stand isn't like a super interesting bit of development. It's really just the fight with Axl RO and like the very end of the story, like all of the stuff in the finale that then does anything with him. So there's sort of a big mid-section, like, we're talking nearly 2/3 of the story probably, where very little really happens to him. And since his personality isn't exactly like exceptionally endearing, I think he's not exactly like perfect. But he still has like an excellent origin story, and he's definitely likable, and he's not sort of boringly stoic like these guys. I still think he definitely belongs in S, but he's not as strong as Josuke, really, and he's definitely not as strong as Jolene, who I think really is... It's simply just that she's easily the most likable. It's really that simple, right? Because that's sort of the most important thing. In a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure story, having a really likable protagonist is key. Because if the protagonist isn't likable, then, like, are you really going to root for them in the same way? These stories are, like, very sort of... You root for this person, you root against this person. It's all about the action. It's all about these one-on-one fights and things. So the best thing to have is a super-duper likable protagonist, because then you're always rooting for the right side. And you always have that faith in them, and then when they succeed, it pans out. So I think that's really what it is with Jolene. She's just the most likable. She has the most likable personality. She has the best motivation. She has the best origin. Everything about her is just great. And that's what makes Part 6 so fun. Really. I mean, it's just, yeah. It's just that simple. So where do we go from here is a really good question. Because I've done the JoJo's now. And yeah, I apologize. There is no Part 9 here. I'm saving it for when it's finished. But I forgot to mention that earlier. I just realized. It's just the first 8 parts. Where do we go from here? I guess we'll do the rehashes. So in part 3, I think Joseph is honestly exactly the same quality as he is in part 2. The things I think about Josuke, in part 3 he's kind of not very nice sometimes. I don't like him. He feels very close-minded and it's almost disappointing. He almost regressed from his sort of his sort of personality in part 2 a little bit. But at the same time, he does feel like a more interesting character. And that's maybe just because he's got all those experiences and things behind him. There's probably not a particularly distinctive reason. Really, this is just the same person but much older, I think. right? I know I just said otherwise, but I'm correcting myself here. It's just the same person but older, so he has more distinctions within his personality that shine through. So he's gonna go one above Joseph, but there's nobody is going between these two. You know, none of the remaining like 120 characters or whatever. Now, old Joseph, this is interesting because obviously he plays a much less significant role in the story, but it's a much more interesting role in the story in a lot of ways because they take this very much, you know, how do I chivalrous, almost, yeah, chivalrous is the word. This very chivalrous guy, and they sort of go, well, nah, he's actually kind of a scumbag. And now look at him, he's like a doddering old man, and he's not even like the super, big personality anymore. He's quite meek. He's obviously not an F, I'm just putting him here because I'm just debating where to put him. I'm gonna say A. I'm gonna put him in A. I'm gonna put him there though. I'll put Josuke from Part 8 above him. And the part of the reason for that is that this is a better version of this idea. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Part 4 Jotaro, I think, is probably gonna go in up here. Because this is probably the actual coolest person in terms of that like cool, you know what I mean. This is the coolest character, like cool in all capital letters, in the entire story. Um, like he is just awesome, right? But is he interesting? No. Also, he's not very present in the story compared to the other people in the sort of main group. You know, we're talking. Now I feel stupid because I've forgotten their names. You know, Rohan and the guy whose name begins with O, and Koichi, they all sort of play a more significant role. He's just sort of this guiding presence who's there for an emergency. You know, he can show up and help them out by having the best stand in the universe. But yeah, I wouldn't exactly call him an exceptional character or anything. He's just cool. Now in Part 6, I'm definitely putting Part 6 Jodo in S, because it's another of my favorite things about this story. I'm just going to put him there. I will put Johnny above him. But one of my favorite things about the story is how they deconstruct Jotaro as a character by basically turning the stoicism that made him succeed in his, goals in Part 3 and Part 4, and say, well, he kind of fucks up in Part 6 because it makes him a really bad father who's barely present in his daughter's life. And even though he does care for her, he's completely incapable of communicating that because of his stoicism. So, it's not everything. Being like Jotaro isn't necessarily the best decision. You might be able to save the world, but you're going to have to sacrifice having proper relationships with your family. And that's like a quite a mature move, especially considering how much I feel like the first 5 parts almost disagree with that philosophy. Or at least don't really try to depict it like that. Because with Joseph, it's more so like, oh, he's an embarrassing old man, but he used to be really cool. Whereas with Jotaro, he's still the same level of cool. He's basically the same person as in Part 4, except now he's kind of pulled a dick move and been an absent father. And I think that is a more effective message than this. And hence, they're a tier above. Now where? I guess we could just try going in order. They're in alphabetical order, I think. Though I don't remember everyone's names, so that'll be interesting. Okay, so Abacchio. I mean, I could just go with like. Let's do Abacchio because I've already said his name, and then let's do the rest of the of Bruno's gang as well. I think Abacchio is pretty good. It's a shame that he ended up being the one to die early, really. Because I liked his attitude towards Giorno, right? He was more on the sort of distrusting end of things. And that's something that I can I think is makes for a more interesting relationship than like Giorno's relationship with like Narantia, for example. Sorry to throw Narantia under the bus, but you know, um, and I generally like his personality. He's maybe a bit more conserved, but he's also much more cautious than the rest of the people in Bruno's gang. And that's because he's older and he's maybe sort of more experienced and almost wiser, even though he's still pretty young. I would guess he's probably about 29. But, he's still on the wiser end of this group, and he's on the wiser end of people in Part 5. Everyone in Part 5 is really young, apart from like Diavolo and Pulpo, I guess. Um, so, yeah, good character. There's nothing else really to say. Bruno himself, I mean, that's an easy S, and I'm going to put him all the way up to here, above Johnny. He's definitely the best character in Part 5, like, hands down. Um, because, I mean, it's really as simple as this. He is a more complex character than Giorno, and he plays just as much of a role in the story a lot of the time. He's like almost all the time he's involved in the fights, and his stand is always helping out. He is he's making a lot of the decisions. Um, he's often, he's one of the faster thinkers, and I mean, generally, he's just an excellent character. He's better than someone like Abaccio, um, like, for example, because Abaccio is a lot more one note. And additionally, Abaccio is more in the background. Like, he's talking all the time, of course, but is he doing anything? He's just sort of adding, he's sort of buffing up the dialogue, and that's not a bad thing, but he's not necessarily a standout because of that. He's merely like functional. Whereas with Bruno, there's a real focus on him and his character, and I think it pays off really well. I just wish the same amount of care went into Giorno. Although I feel like it did, it just isn't executed in a way I enjoy. Now, where are the others? What are their names? There's Fugo, so that must be... There we go. That's an easy find because of the background. This is the guy who, like, leaves the story halfway through and then never came back because Araki didn't want to bring him back even though he originally planned on doing it. And I'm just going to put him in D for that. It's circumstance, but it's rubbish, right? A character arc is like being set up here. He leaves the group because he's loyal to the mob, and then he's going to come back and fight them at the end of the story, and then he just never comes back and fights them. And that's rubbish. This is probably the single most annoying thing potentially in the whole series to me. Is how wasted this is, especially since he was kind of cool. Like, it's just so disappointing. Then we have, I mean, there's Norancia for sure, which is there, and then there's somebody else. Norancia, I'm probably just gonna put in C. I know, well, certainly Norancia is somebody who I recognize instantly, so I'm sort of assuming that he's very well liked. But to me, outside of the bit with the shark, where the shark is like attacking him, there's nothing really great. Like, even against the shrinking dude, which is the only other fight of significance like he's in, I wouldn't exactly call him like, I wouldn't say that fight is very interesting, really. The shark is really good, though. I really enjoy that, and obviously he's like the center piece of it because he's the one who's not able to communicate about the shark. And it's quite funny, but also really intense because I was expecting somebody to die around that point in the story anyway. So that's great. But is that on his character or more so just on the story? It's difficult to say. I'm gonna leave him in C, but like he could go up to a B maybe. But is he as good as these four? Like, no, I don't think so. Now, what? There's definitely, I mean, there's Trish, and I feel like there's somebody else as well. But I wouldn't. There is somebody else, right? I mean, I'm seeing loads of people from part 5 in here, but like, let me think about this. There's Mister. Yeah. Oh my God. How would I? How that's so embarrassing. I can't believe I forgot about Mister. Okay. So Mister is definitely up in the B's, right? Um, he's the closest. He's the closest character to like your Joseph slash Jonathan slash Jotaro in part 5. Except of course he's like a hitman. Which is interesting. I love his stand, and I'm gonna include the stand's personality in the character, I think, which is why I'm putting him at the top of B. Because his stand has such a clear like personality to it. And generally, I mean, he's around a lot more because I mean, for a start, he survives to the end. Also, I feel like he just has a good relationship with Giorno. Like Abbacchio does as well, but like Narancio and Fugo, I couldn't really tell you what their relationship with Giorno is like. And I couldn't tell you anything specific about their relationship with Bruno, apart from that they respect him because he helped them out. When they were sort of in their time of need. Whereas I feel like there's a clear like bond between these two, and even between these two, these three feel more linked together, and these two are sort of on the outs within Bruno's like group. And as a result, these three get more time to have sort of a dynamic in the first place with Giorno as well. So yeah, I think that's top of B seems appropriate. And then with Trish, it's definitely a character I would say is underutilized really. I think she's good on paper. I like when she's fighting Notorious B.I.G. But aside from that, is there anything really like woo, awesome going on? She's just kind of in the background reacting a lot, and I get that's because for most of the story she doesn't even like have a stand. But yeah, also we don't even see what happens to her at the end. Like her, Giorno, and Mister are the three survivors, and in the final panel we see Giorno and Mister, and we don't even see Trish. Like that kind of sucks for her. So yeah, bottom of C. It's very unfortunate. I guess we can do, yeah, let's just do a lot of these sort of supporting casts. Or something. I don't know. Actually, no. I mean, we should probably do Dio. Because he's quite a significant figure. Part 1 Dio is super good. I'm going to put him, honestly, Part 1 Dio is like an A. And is this I don't know how much of a hot take this is, but I'm going to put Part 1 Dio over Part 3 Dio. Because we get the Dio origin in part 1, we get to see him be that, like, awful person growing up with Jonathan. And he just is present for a much larger portion of the story. And that's not to like, dig on part 3 Dio, because he's perfectly fine. But he feels like a more generic final goal villain, whereas part 1 Dio is more of, like, a real personal threat to Jonathan. And that's a much more effective character to me. Yeah, I think both of them are in a good spot. Part 7, regular Dio. I'll put the old one there now so I don't lose track of him. Is S. I think. Actually, no. I think he would be S if he had a slightly better origin. His origin is too uninteresting. It's almost weaker than part 1 Dio's. In fact, it probably is weaker than part 1 Dio's. Because that is just, part 1 Dio's just great. If he was written by a more experienced Araki, we'd be looking at an S tier character with part 1 Dio, I think. He has a great personality. I like his dynamic with Johnny and how they sort of have, childhood beef, same as in part 1, though obviously realized very differently. I like his role as this sort of super driven And again, he's like the morally grey character of Part 7, right? Because initially he decides to help Valentine and he's very opposed to Johnny, but in the end he does the right thing and he tries to kill Valentine, and in the end he dies for it, which is really unfortunate. And I don't know if this is like a super important factor, and it definitely isn't in any other character's case, but his death is so, like, memorable that I have to stick him high for that as well. I have to give him points for that. Like, just straight up being in half because you were run over by a train. That's awesome, and I'm so glad they showed it in full. And the way they reveal it is so good as well. Like I mean, Part 7 is just, my god, it's so good. Stillborn is just incredible. Okay, alternative final boss Dio. First of all, I feel like he kind of undermines the impact of Valentine, but that's not too important, and it won't even affect where I put Valentine, because, I mean, he's going in S. But, second of all, he doesn't really have a personality. It's just like Part 3 Dio's come back, and now he looks like that. He's got the same stand, and he doesn't really have, like, any lines. He has, like, 10 lines. That's not exactly what I would call awesome. So yeah, probably one of the worst characters in Steel Ball Run, to be honest. I don't mind the plot point. I don't, but he is more of that. He's just a narrative device, more than a character. High C, I think. Yeah. So let's go through some of the like gangs. You know, the helping hands, I guess. Or I guess maybe I could just go through and try and sort them by part. Yeah, okay. So, part 1 characters, we've got Arena. Just a generic love interest, really. I'm gonna put her next to Jonathan. Why the fuck not? Speedwagon should be in here. I didn't put a second Speedwagon for part 2. I thought about it, but I decided we were fine with just the one Speedwagon. Just because he doesn't play that significant of a role in either part, right? He's just sort of there. And obviously he's completely powerless. He's just like a guy who goes, oh, and like makes a reaction face. Like, but he's very charming. I can't not put him in B, I think, but I'm gonna put him at the bottom of B. He never had the charm to really wow me. Which is a shame. But you know, I do like him. Who else is in part 1? Oh, this guy. This is the guy, he's like a vampire Dio makes. And I enjoyed that fight. I thought that fight is probably the best fight in part 1. That's why I put him in. But he's not exactly what I would call interesting. Again, I think he's sort of confined to C tier. But I'm actually going to put him over Narantia. Because I think he's kind of got a vibe, you know? He's kind of cool. I quite like him. That is George Joestar as well. That's another part 1 character. And let's also get part 7 George Joestar. George Joestar in part, this is absolutely D. He's so boring. He's gonna go below Fugo. He's boring. He's one note, and he's just much better in part 7. In fact, I mean part 7 George is definitely an A. I really like the moment where he's like, oh my god, that's my son racing at the end, and how he like forgives him. But I also really understand why he blamed his son for Nicholas's death as well. Like I felt that because like, yeah, it's obviously silly. Like it's obviously not Johnny's fault at all. But at the same time, like it's completely human for him to do that. Like I don't blame him for that at all. You know. In someone with very few scenes, he's an incredibly effective character. And of course, he plays a huge role in what makes Johnny so great, and that is definitely worth keeping in mind as well. Is that it? Maybe. Oh, let's do Gyro and his dad as well, because, you know. So obviously it's not a shocker. I think I'm gonna put Gyro here. I just really like Jolene. I mean, she's gonna be hard to beat. what I'll say about Gyro is, I mean, he's the Bruno of Part 7, except Part 7 is better, so he's better than Bruno. Um, Incredible origin, incredible personality, excellent motivations and goals, and he's always thinking about them. I love the arc he goes through, which is basically becoming a determined person. Um, like, he's someone who sort of doesn't know what he wants in life, and by the end he's someone who does, and I mean then he dies, but and I was initially disappointed by that because I felt his arc is something that deserved a reward of him having a happy ending. But I actually think, in retrospect, I kind of fuck with his death a lot. I think it's more impactful than I initially gave it credit for. So yeah, I mean, easy S. As for Jaro's dad, I really like him as well. I'm gonna put him right next to George. I don't remember his name, but I really like his philosophy, the way he thinks, the way he acts. I don't agree with him, but I think it's a really realized version of that philosophy, that sort of I'm just doing my order to execute all these people and execute this child, and also I'm like a cool ass doctor, like, and all that's true. And you know, he's multifaceted in that regard. As a doctor, he's an awesome person, and as an executioner, he's a sucky person, and at the same time, but neither of those are like clashing with each other morally. He's managed to create a world in which in his head, there is no distinction between what he's doing here because the people he's executing are supposed to die and the people he's saving are supposed to live. And as much as that's a silly way of thinking, it's really well communicated. And I mean, it's obvious that the manga itself doesn't agree with him. And he gets a happy ending, I guess. He gets to fuck off and live in peace and retire, unlike that boy who died of a cold, who I should have probably included just because of that line about him dying of a cold. But I didn't. Alas. Where to now? Oh, let's get this out the way. That's an obvious F. This is probably the worst character in the series, right? Sorry to the Stroheim fans, whoever you are, but if your favorite character from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a Nazi who is depicted by the manga as a cool cyborg guy who's like respectable and chivalrous, even though he's a Nazi, that's really weird. You know, I don't fuck with him. If you think he's an interesting or decent character, that's fine. Please don't have him be your favorite. That's just odd. Yeah, definite F. God, there's so many people left. How many is that? 1, 2, 3. Oh my god. There's still like, what, 84 characters left? Oh, this is just terrible. Okay, let's try and be like really fast. Let's just get some boring ones out the way. Okay, this guy, he has a cool outfit, and he's really boring. D. Also his stand is boring. Electricity guy from part 4, he's kind of threatening at first, but he's also very silly and goofy. I don't really get behind him. He's probably my least favorite significant character in that part. We'll put him like here. I'll say Vanasui, he's gonna need more talk, so is Avdol. Okay, Axel RO. I think for a one-time stand user, very, very threatening, very effective, great at causing character growth in our protagonist, even if it's not needed. Interesting origin story and a cool stand. I mean, that's a super successful one. Still, Boron's just awesome, man. Maybe not that high. Like here. Here, actually. Yeah. I'll say Blackmore. Now, where's Oingo? Because we got Boingo. Where would O be? That's Oingo. Oingo and Boingo, they're very funny, but I can't say much beyond that. So I'm gonna put them here, and I'm gonna say Oingo is funnier than Boingo. But they can't be separated, you know. They're gonna go there, sort of middle of B. It's funny. I mean, it's absolutely the funniest part of part three, but there's nothing amazing going on, is that right? They're not like incredible characters in the same way that anyone in A or S is. Um, this is the like super insanely evil doctor from part five. Who like he's just so like gleefully evil. It's hilarious. I really found him great just because of how like undividedly evil he was in a manga that's all about being having every character be morally grey. Like everyone has some good and some bad, and it's like in contrast to the first four parts, which are all very sort of black and white. Having someone so incredibly like evil is really appreciated. So yeah, A for sure. This guy, I only have him in here because his stand is really fun. It's the one that like obeys people and he like spits everywhere. Um, but like the actual guy does like nothing. I can't really put him higher than C to be honest. I'll put him like there. Fun stand though. Daya really underutilized, but she's very likable. I'm gonna put her like there. I think no, I'll put her over Jotaro, but I won't put her over Chihono. She's fun, cool stand, nothing else to say. Um, Gambling guy, I don't remember anything about him other than he's gambling. I don't even know why he's in here really. D. Um, this guy, his name is Dolomite, I think. Um, and he looks like he's got like chicken arms and shit. Anyway, I've kind of I mean, I fuck with the design, but and the stand is terrifying. Easily one of the most horrifying stands. Even if it's not like the strongest or most threatening stand. It's fucking creepy. Um, I like the interrogation scene with him as well, but I can't put him. I can't put him over a C. I don't think we're about to get a lot of C's. This guy's a D. He's really boring. He's easily the worst, like part six character. Um, he's very one note. He's the guy with like the plane. Yeah. Old lady from part three who had the arrow. Um, she's entertaining. Her scenes are funny. When she's trying to like hide, um, the shit from like who is she trying to hide it from? I don't even really remember. And like it's like going so like comedically wrong. Very funny, and I like her personality as like a sort of stupid, demented old lady. It's always a fun personality, but again, I just can't put it above a C, you know? Sorry. That is acidity. Yeah, boring. I mean, the other two of part two's villains are at least, like, interesting. He's just sort of there because it's more interesting when there's three bad guys than two, I guess. Um, yeah. Uh, Shrinking guy, the guy with the shrinking stand, also incredibly forgettable. I just included him because I put that whole group of like hitmen who were like trying to kill Trish. I put every single one of them in, so I felt I had to put him in to round it out. He's gonna go like there. I mean, none of the ranking of the people in this tier does not matter at all. Cold guy, cool stand, and I like how cocky he is all the time. But the fight itself is not necessarily very memorable. Like a low C, like here. Honestly, I'm gonna move Narantia up a bit. That feels a bit harsh to put her that low in C. Her? There, him. Alien guy from part 4, really funny. One of the funniest characters, and I like his role in the like pylon guy fight. As well. Cool powers. I mean, is he genuinely an alien, by the way? I never even really thought about that. If he's an alien, that implies a lot about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that I hadn't thought about before. Um, Hato, excellent. I love the stuff with Tamaki, and that scene. Other than that, is there anything really going on? No. Top of C. Um, Whole horse. I love how he keeps running away and how he's really fucking weak and stupid. Um, and then when he finally does like try to do something, it's like so unimpactful. It's great. Um, yeah. But he's not as funny as Oingo and Boingo, even when he's involved in that part. So, like, yeah, bottom of C. I don't see much in him. Is this stupid? Who on earth is this? I recognize them. Oh, it's the guy in the mirror. The guy in the mirror. Definite D. Really uninteresting. Same as this guy. I forgot he existed, yeah. These two are so uninteresting compared to the rest of the, like, Hitman gang. Kato, I really love the backstory with her and Jobin. I like her role in the finale, but I feel that she's generally underutilized. But I think she still belongs in A. I'll put her here. She's pretty great. Hair Girl. I forgot to even mention her in the Part 8 video. Kind of goes nowhere. We don't know why she knew Kira, really. But I enjoy her personality quite a lot. I'd put her at, like, a low B. Also, I'm gonna die her down to, like, here. And Alien Guy. I want to put these guys in sort of the same spot. Also, I'm going to put them all above Oingo and Boingo. I think they should all be in, like, the higher end of B, really. Like, all 5 in that order, without any sort of gaps. Yeah, that feels a bit better, I think. I think that's Cars, so I'll leave him. Yeah, must be, because we're in K here. Look at the other characters. Okay, this guy is the guy who drinks his own piss, and that's the only reason I remember him. I mean, I like his stand, because it's, like, feng shui stuff as well, but, like, really all I remember about him is that he drinks piss, which is just funny. You know, there's nothing else to say there. Yeah, easy C. That is Josefumi's mother, who I talked about a bit in Part 8, and I kind of thought she was interesting, and then squandered by the idea that she actually did care about him the whole time, which kind of goes against the philosophy related to Josuke finding his home in an adopted family, a little bit. But, like, other than that, I think the twist itself is completely fine. I mean, she's in, like, what, 2 scenes, so still C, but, like, interesting character, you know, worth talking about. Magenta, I think is his name. I like him, but he's not like a standout of Part 7. He's not a Steel Ball Run favorite. His role in the Weka Pipo fight is nothing, but when he's actually fighting Weka Pipo, not working with him, that fight is great, and his personality is great as well. I like him. One of Valentine's best henchmen, for sure. This guy, the guy who, like, makes a silly, weird genetic clone thing to attack people. I thought he was really surprisingly intimidating, and then when the actual fight was happening, that was also very funny. So, you know, one of the stronger fights in Part 5, and he's quite a good personality, because he's so, you know, he's really fucking evil. Yeah, I think solid B. Mitsuba is cool. I think she's probably, like, one of the better characters in Part 8, same as Kado. Her role towards the end of the story is just consistently great. I'll tell you what I really like that I didn't mention in the video, because I'm remembering now. There's a lot of stuff I didn't mention in that video. I really like the moment where she decides to let Yasuho drown. After all the, like, work they did, and Jobin is able to convince her in, like, seconds to just let Yasuho die. I found that really interesting. I'll leave it at that. I thought it was a great moment. There. No, higher. There. Lovely character. The head guard from Part 6. I mean, she's okay. I like her stand, and I think she's kind of intimidating. I'll put her above Jonathan. This is the guy with the paper. He's only in here because his introduction is so funny when they turn the paper and then there's just a gun when you turn the piece of paper and it, like, shoots him. It's so funny. It's probably the funniest single thing to have ever happened in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But other than that, he's really not very interesting. So he's being carried by like a single moment. Um, I'll put him there. Um, Mountain Tim, he's smooth, he's cool, like a solid B. I wouldn't exactly call him like exceptional though. I'll put him above Speedwagon. Um, Nijimura, uh, so underutilized, it's actually painful, and I'm gonna put her in D because of it. Like she deserved so much more screen time, but she never got it. Sucks. Old Norisuke from Part 7. Um, he's really boring. He was set up as if he was going to be super duper important. When he like won that one stage of the race, and then he did nothing. Yeah, definite like hair. This guy's name is like Mike, maybe. I like his stand, and I like the bit where he's like where Hot Pants kills him. That's cool, and I that whole scene is just great, and he plays a key role in it. So for that alone, I think honestly, I'm gonna put him at the bottom of B. I really like him. Um, yeah, he's cool. This guy's what is his name? I don't remember. The guy with the blowing up skin. Um, Memorable but not particularly fun. When he became the third stand user like fight of Stillborn, I was almost worried because up to that point all three of them have been like interesting but nothing exceptional. And that was true of him as well. So I can't put him above C, but at least he's memorable just on look alone. Fishing Rod Guy from Part 5, really fun. He's super entertaining. Part 5 has a lot of entertaining, like, random enemies and stuff. That's really what keeps it afloat. Um, yeah, he was really funny. And also, that was my favorite fight of Part 5. And probably, like, one of my favorites of the series. If I had to say, like, top 5 fights, Johnny versus Valentine and everything to do with that finale is obviously first. And then I would say the same with the Poochie fight in Part 6 is second. Um, and in all honesty, this could well be like third off the top of my head. Oh no, 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 no. Sandman is third, and this could be like fourth. Like it's just an absolutely wonderful fight. Love it. Poco Loco. Um, I love that he wins the race. I mean, that's all there is to be said. The fact that he wins the race alone puts him like up here. He's super fun. I love his stand. I love everything he does. I wish he was in it more. I wish there was more of a focus in the race in Steel Bull Run. That's my one criticism, I think. Or like my one big one. I just wish that we saw more of the race. And especially that we saw more of him winning. We just see him in the background and then there's like a piece of text that says, he won by the way, because Dio disappeared or whatever. I want to see him after the victory. I want to see him looking satisfied and living comfortable. And I mentioned this in the video as well, but the fact that he's black is genuinely like cool as fuck. For something set in like the 18 fucking 90s, having a race won by a black guy, that shit's cool as hell. Great decision there from Iraqi. Pulpo, he's fat and kind of funny looking. But is he the best part of Part 5? Definitely not. Like, here. Poor Tom. I like his design. I like the fact that he's like he was like eating somebody out in that one scene. His stand is really boring. The scene where Josuke is chasing him is really boring. Yeah. I wish he was more. I think if he had another scene, that would have been interesting, actually. This guy, really cool stand, and he was the first stand user in Steel Ball Run who made me go, this is awesome. The personality was there, the stand was there, the fight was cool. I love Johnny adapting. I like the fact that he got Johnny in a super vulnerable position where he was not even on his horse. So and he's in a wheelchair. He's fucked, right? But he still managed to overcome it. I love that he was responsible for creating that situation. Definitely a B. We'll go, honestly, over Mountain Tim. I really fucking love him. This is the other guy from the train fight. Awesome stand, awesome personality. But he's not as funny as Fishing Rod Guy. That's the only issue, really. So I think he's gonna go like there. Um, I'm really trying to get through some of these quickly because it's gonna take fucking ages. Like we've still got a lot of significant characters who I'm skipping over for now to talk about as well. The ghost girl from part 4, she's cool. End of story. Um, this guy, he's kind of funny personality-wise, but he doesn't stand out to me like that strongly. There. Ringo, really interesting origin story. I like the fight. And I'm not. This is weird because it's like there's not enough of him, but also I think having another scene with him would fail at the same time. So you almost inevitably create a character who is never going to be perfect. With Ringo, which is interesting. I'll put him there. Um. Okay. Who on earth is that? Risotto. That's Risotto. Cool stand. I like his role as the head of the group. I love his fight with Diavolo, and I think he's got a kind of interesting personality, even if it doesn't show very much of the time. Yeah, bottom of B. Oh no, there. Um, okay. Sasame, he's cool. He's just so scummy. It's quite fun. I would say he's one of my favorite things in part 8. Yeah, I really like him. I'll put him there. Um, this guy who's like a fucking bondage guy, like, um, he's funny. I think the concept of him is cool. His stand is kind of cool. He made me laugh. I like the bit where he found out the Doctor Dude died, and then he like completely switches up on how he thinks about life, and then gets defeated like 10 seconds later. That's fun. B. So this guy with the bugs, um, rest in peace. That was such a sad and genuinely shocking death. Um, especially considering how long he went without finding out about the like sandwich or whatever. Man. Um, yeah, really cool. There. Cool. Steven Steele. Um, I mean, he's kind of around. I like that he's not actually a pedophile, when it initially seems like he is a pedophile. That's cool. Um, Sugar Mountain. Yeah, another good character. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's a still boring character. Like, what do you expect me to do? Um, yeah, really strong. I mean, there just there's like nothing else to add. Like, I don't know. I like Sugar Mountain. There's really nothing else to add. Like, I don't know what else to say. Cool character. This is Yasuho's mother, who I kind of really fucked with. 'Cause she was in, it's kind of a tragic story, but I feel really bad for her. Um, I wish that her and Yasuho spoke in more scenes, really, more than anything else. And she's key to Yasuho being a really good character in her own right. So yeah, good. Um, Tamaki, I really like his tricking of Hato and that whole dynamic. And other than that, he's very forgettable. C. Um, the guy who kept committing suicide. I mean, it's kind of a funny thing, I guess, kind of, but like, does he have any sort of personality? Not really. Um, who was that? Oh, I can remember as well, and I've forgotten. Yeah, it popped in my head. Who are you? 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 Hold on. I'm gonna do a sneaky thing to find out who you are. Um. Who is that? Oh God. Okay, time to use Google. Oh, it's Josuke's mother. Cool. That is not what I remember her. I mean, I don't remember her looking so like fierce, but you know, she's cool. C. Like a higher C, like there. Chef guy, cool in concept. He's in one scene, and that's it. Um, Pylon guy, I really love this. I love it, the fight with this guy. Um, yeah, he's really cool. Not much else to say though. Like, he's not exactly brimming with personality. He just has one of the most interesting stands in the entire story. I mean, yeah, what are you gonna do? This is like the fictional character summoning guy. All three of the like Dio's sons in part 6 really are weaker than like most of the other characters in part 6, aren't they? He's gonna go like here. Damn, that sucks. Vanilla Ice, I love that he is so threatening and kills 2 of the main characters and nearly a third, which means that he kills more people than Dio. Um, um, seriously though, he's pretty cool. I was really hot on him. I remember I almost like kind of was gushing about him. I think a bit in the video I made on part 3. But since then, I think my opinion on him has maybe worsened a little bit. I don't dislike him though. I think he's cool. Okay, we have gotten rid of quite a few here. Wham. I guess he's kind of cool because of his little beef with Joseph, but like, I don't know. I don't remember that much about him. I'll put him in C. Weka Pipo, really fucking cool. Like, that's definitely like a high A. Also motivation, I like his relationship with Gyro. I like how he kind of switches up and changes side. And I like what he does after that. I like how he sort of teams up with Dio for a little bit. I like his fight with Magenta. Really consistent. Great character. Used perfectly. Perfect like a mount. You know, he doesn't overstay his welcome at all. Great stuff. Will Zappelli. I don't remember anything about him. Dr. Wu. I like how he is the only like person in the Lokakaka like drug dealing group who actually thinks he's a good person. Like he thinks what he's doing is good. I maybe should have touched on that in the video, but yeah, great. He's cool. And I like his stand. I think he's like a low B. Yeah, we'll go there. Yotsuyu. I spoke about this in the video. I think he's probably the best enemy stand user, even including Toru in part 8. I think I think I'm gonna put him like here. Like he's super fun. He's intimidating. His stand is cool. His fight is super drawn out, and it gets a real lot of his personality out. I like he has a personal connection with Norisuke. I like that he's threatening Tsurugi because it creates a lot of stakes because that's a child who doesn't really know what's going on. I like how manipulative he is. I think he's a great introduction to the rock people. Just an excellent character, really. Yeah, and then we have that is Yukako. I like her. I like how she's like weirdly obsessed with Koichi and like is a recurring character in spite of being originally an enemy stand user. I think she's interesting. I wouldn't say she's exceptional, but she's kind of funny and cool. I'll put her there. Motorbike dude. I have the exact same thoughts. I like that he shows up again. I like his role when he shows up again. Also, he has a cool stand. I'll put him like there. Okay, that's all of the people I don't have that much to add. That's like a lot of the sort of almost filler people done. So now let's talk about the remaining people of significance. How long have... Oh my god, it's been an hour and 15 minutes already. Oh god. Okay. Some of these are gonna end up being a bit too fast than they maybe should be, but I just kind of want to get out of here. I'm gonna go work out after this. Okay. Cars. We'll start with Cars, because I probably should have done him earlier, because there's not much to say on him. He's a fine antagonist, but he is easily the weakest antagonist, main antagonist in the series. Let's get the other main antagonist done, actually. So Diavolo is also one of the weaker ones, because he only shows up at the very end of the story, and he's not that intimidating as, like, the big boss. So I can't put him above, like, here. And Doppio, for all that he's entertaining, and I love the stupid shit he does on the phone and the way he acts, he also isn't like an exceptional character, you know, as the sort of alter ego of Diavolo. So I'm also gonna put him like here. I'll put him over Mountain Tim though. He's cool, but like, yeah, nothing exceptional. Then we've got Kira. Easy S. You know, not much to say there. He's so steadfast, obviously evil. I like that he has the same motivation as Josuke, right? When you think about it, he just wants to live a simple, peaceful life, but he also wants to be able to be a serial killer in addition. I like that parallel, and I like his stand, and I like how he acts around the sort of main group. And I like the shit with his family. Like, let's get the I can't remember the kid's name, but this guy's obviously going in A. He's great. I love these two's relationship. You know, nothing else to add there. Um, Toru, I don't know. He's alright. He's pretty good. I'll put him up like here. I did mention I like that he like doesn't have a family and that's why he's evil almost, or at least that's sort of how the manga's trying to depict it. And I guess as much as I hate how annoyed I get at how obviously evil he is, and yet they just can't be asked to show it for so long, I also kind of respect it a bit. The longer time passes since I finished reading it, the more and more I kind of respect it. And I think he goes out in a way that's really interesting. So, yeah, kind of cool. Is the only one left? The only ones left are Poochie and Valentine, and really all I have to debate here is which one of them is going higher in S tier. I think Poochie's gonna end up higher. But Valentine is going to end up pretty high up, right? He's going to go about there. To put it simply, Valentine is really cool, really intimidating, cool stand. I love how creepy he is. I love how important he is. Like, he's the president. I love how organized he is, how efficient he is. I love how fitting his stand is. He's just great. And that final battle with him and Johnny and Gyro, holy moly, is that brilliant stuff. Poochie, though, the thing about Poochie is I just love more. I love that he's a priest. I love his relationship with Dio. I love his stand. I love his weird, like, twisted way of thinking. I love the finale, even possibly on par with the Valentine finale, except he is more of the reason it's so good, right? The reason Part 7's finale is so good is just as much because of the protagonist and stuff, but in Part 6, it's all Poochie. As much as Jolene is cool, they are just almost at his bidding. He's so ridiculously busted in that finale. It's so interesting. I mean, he literally kills everyone except Emporio, right? I fuck with it. I'm just debating which way round they go. I think I'll put Poochie at the top for now. For now, he's not going to end up at the top. There are better characters yet to be uncovered here. Well, there's not many, but there's a couple. Yeah, that's it for our main antagonists. Then, I guess we're just going to go through the remaining ones in order. Anasui. Very cool. I kind of fuck with how ridiculously obsessed he is with Jolene. His stand is okay. I think it could have been utilized in a more interesting way some of the time. I wish we got him earlier in the story. And I like that. Well, that's really it. There's nothing else to say. He's cool. A. Avdol. He's my favorite of the Part 3 gang. Mostly just because he's the only one who I feel is genuinely sensible. Um, like that's really all there is to it. I'm gonna put him in like in a sort of mid A position, something like that. Um, yeah, cool stand, I guess. It's very very simple, but you know, yeah. Blackmore, I love this guy. One of my favorites from Part 7. I'm gonna put him at the bottom of S. I genuinely think that. He's so it's all on the vibes. He's just so intimidating. The way he looks, the way he like stands, and he's like jumps around in the rain and shit is so cool looking. I love the mask. I love how where before we even know he's a stand user, he's just like he looks like a fucking stupid weird bumbling guy, and then he becomes like the most terrifying guy ever. Especially since he's fighting Lucy, and Lucy doesn't even like have a stand at that point. That's so good. And I fuck with how he kills Mountain Tim like that. Like, just like, bang, he's dead. Caesar, I think, is kind of cool, but I don't like the way he went out very much, is my only sort of issue with Caesar. I think he went out maybe almost too easy, and I wish I think he should have died, like, in the final fight. Like, I think him, Lisa, and Joseph should all have made it to that final fight, and he could have died, and Joseph and Lisa had lived, and that probably would have worked a little tiny bit better. Yeah, I remember his introduction probably being the highlight of part 2, though, so that's something. Um, Emporio. So my thoughts on him are very up and down because I still feel like his character arc is very rushed at the very end of the story, but I also really like that he's the one to beat Poochie. So, you know, maybe it's fine that his character arc is a bit rushed. Um, but other than that, I don't find his personality like super entertaining, so I think he's gonna go at like the very top of B, and we'll leave it there. Speaking of personalities that I don't find amazing, Hermes also definitely in B and lower in B too. I wish she was in it more. She has an awesome origin, and then after she does that shit with the guy, what's his name, who like Sports Max or something? Yeah, Sports Max. After she's dealt with him, she may as well not be in the story anymore, which kind of sucks. Like you could have killed her instead of Foo Fighters. And yeah, Foo Fighters. I wish she wasn't killed so early, but also I really enjoy her in the first half of the story the whole way through, up until her death. So I think that's like a low A, like something like that. Yeah. Hot Pants is really good. That's another S. Um, Fun origin. Not fun. Good origin. I don't know why I said fun. I was just like, I didn't want to say good. And then I just said fun. But it's not a fun origin at all. It's a horrifying origin. But, like, it's a really interesting one. Because it really plays on the morals of the actual manga itself, not just my own morals. Like, you can tell, I feel like Araki doesn't even know what to think about what he wrote there. Which is always fun. Yeah. I think that's an easy yes, really. Yeah, her death is cool, her personality is cool, everything's great. Weird ass name though. Iggy is a dog. I like when he fights that falcon, and that's kind of the only thing he does that's particularly interesting. Jesus, he's in like one scene, but he's kind of cool as fuck when he's talking to Johnny, that one time. And I like that he's in the story at all. I love that they just kind of are like, oh yeah, the reason these stands exist in Steel Ball Run, that's because of Jesus' corpse being buried all over the US for some reason. That's great. It's just cool as fuck, but I can't put him higher than like a low B. Jobin is the best character in JOJOLian for sure. I'm gonna put him like there. I find him really tragic because his philosophy is formed from a horrible trauma that's not his fault, and yet that philosophy is exactly what leads to his downfall. And that's the reason he dies, and why he has such a horrible attitude, and why he's the only person who doesn't accept Josuke into the Higashikara family. Rubbish for him, but yeah, a really neatly tied up tragedy. My voice is starting to go. Oh my god. Okay, Josefumi and Kira. They're both fine, but obviously they're mostly there to inform Josuke's character, so they're not exactly what I would call, like, awesome. So I'm gonna put them both in, like, this sort of mid-B position, maybe. I think I'll put them, like... Yeah, I think I'll put them above Pylon Guy, but below Alien Guy. That seems reasonable. And Kira is more interesting than Josefumi, but they are next to each other for sure. Joshu, F. He's so annoying. Kakyoin. He was he's really cool. But he's also a little silly sometimes, and I also think he didn't get enough time in the spotlight in part 3, and then his death felt much less impactful than it could have, but still, like a high B. Rohan, I'm gonna be honest. I like his connection to the original murder that started everything, but I don't like his personality very much, unfortunately, which really sucks for him because otherwise he would be really high up. But I'm gonna put him in a low B. And Koichi is like not amazing either, really. I don't particularly like his personality, and I don't particularly like his role in the story, and he feels a little irrelevant some of the time. I like when he's very briefly in part 5, though. So I think I'm also going to put him at the bottom of B. Lisa, I guess she's alright, but like, yeah, connection to the protagonist, I guess, is cool, but I don't know. She feels really almost outdated more than any other character. It's weird. Yeah, mid C. Lucy, S. There's so many Steel Borgeron characters in S. I think she's slightly more interesting than Johnny. I think she really carries a lot of that B plot. Her relationship with Valentine is really good. Um, yeah, and I like how effectively and quickly she sort of grows as a person across the story. It's great. Yeah. Not much else to add there. Norisuke, awesome dad, and I like his philosophy towards life. But I feel like he doesn't play that much of a role after the sort of first third of the story in JOJOLian. So like, yeah, I can't really say like, I'll put him like here, one below this big lineup of like protagonists and shit. Okay, we're nearly done. We are so close to done. 7 characters left. Okuyasu, that's his name. I forgot it earlier. He's really fun, and I love his relationship with Josuke. I like his motivation as a character, and I like that he gets to fulfill that sort of role. He gets to be the number 2 to the protagonist, who has that motivation to kill the antagonist because they like wrong them in some way, and yet at the same time he doesn't die trying to do that like everyone else in that role seems to, like Gyro and Rai, obviously the most recent 2 examples, and Foo Fighters dies in that way as well, I guess, if you want to include that. But unlike all of them, Okuyasu, and Bruno as well. Bruno as well, he dies as well. But Okuyasu actually lives, and I kind of fuck with that a lot. I'm going to put him in like a pretty decent A spot. Polnareff, I'm going to be honest, I don't vibe with him that much. But he's just in the story so much, I can't ignore it. So we'll have to put him like... We'll have to put him like here as well. I'm just going to put him above Joseph. Rai, I kind of wish he was introduced earlier, and I wish he has more personality, and I wish a lot of things about Rai. And honestly, I just don't... I don't want to reward him as a character, even if he's not that terrible. So, bottom of C. Snake Man is the best character in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I talked about it a lot in my video on part 7. But I love his motivation. I love how conflicted he is about everything. I feel incredibly sorry for him. He's like this perfect tragedy. Um, and he just absolutely blew me away as a character. I mean, you know, he is quite simply the best character around, and one of my favorite characters in any manga I've ever read. Yeah, that's a simple S. Tsurugi, if the pervert jokes weren't around, it would be an A, but since they are around, I think it's gonna be like mid B. They really suck. Um, Weather Report, I like him, but not that much. His personality just isn't there until he regains consciousness. Like, consciousness? That's not accurate. Until his amnesia fucks off, I guess. And then after that, he dies so soon after, we don't even really get to see him pop off like that, so... Yeah, I'm gonna put him in like the lower A spot there. And finally, Yasuho. Yeah, the only other character in Part 8 who's like on par with these two. I think she's more interesting than Joban. I'm gonna put her above Poco Loco as well. I like her role as almost a guiding figure in Josuke's life, and I like her relationship with Josuke a lot, and I like her stand and like her relationship with her mother. So, you know, very consistently good things. It's just a shame that the rest of that manga doesn't have very interesting character relationships in it. And that's it. Yeah. Um, Damn. Honestly, I thought it was going to take even longer than it has. Um, and it has taken an hour and a half still. Um, Good God. But we did it, so hooray! Okay, I just need to, like, be silent for a bit. My voice is, like, tired. Oh my God. Okay, bye.